Welcome back, everyone, to our Thrive Couples Group. It is so awesome to have each of you in our groups. This group series is called From This Day Forward, and we are so glad that you are joining us. Hopefully, this has been a great series and a great group for you to be a part of. This week, we are talking all about having fun in our relationships.
That is right. Yay, right? We really believe that God created marriage to be enjoyed. In fact, it can be the most life-giving relationship that we could have. But the truth is, fun in marriage doesn't always come naturally, right? It doesn't always come easy. And this week, we're going to talk about a few ways to put the fun back into our marriage relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this week, we are joined by what I think is probably one of the most fun, happy couples that I've ever met. And this is JR and Jess Philhauer. Welcome. Why don't you guys tell everybody that's watching, everybody in the groups, a little bit about yourselves?
Sure, absolutely. So Jess and I are coming up on our 5th anniversary.
Woohoo.
Yeah.
We have 3 kids, a 20-year-old daughter, and then our boys are 16 and 15, Donovan and Evan. Our daughter's Claudia. And we've the last 5 years have been a kind of a whirlwind. Our dating story is actually, I'm actually surprised we're here. Let's just say that. From the time that I first messaged her on Facebook to the time we got engaged was 12 months. And I dated her for all 12 months, but how many months did you?
I was only a part of the dating for about 6 months. 2 at the beginning and kind of 4 at the end when I finally got all the way on board.
Yeah.
So when JR actually first Facebook messaged me, we started hanging out. Everything was so great. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to end up having to marry this guy. And then I realized the weight of all the things from my past were weighing on me so heavy. And in my life, I was like, oh my God, I'm actually going to ruin him. I will destroy him. So I went quiet.
I think the word's ghosted.
Okay. Yeah, so I ghosted JR for about the next 4 months. And in that time was about February. It was Valentine's Day, and he wrote me this poem and posted it on Facebook while I'm not talking to him, titled, "To My Future Wife, signed from your future husband." And I was like, oh, cheesy Pete's, right? Wow. So I still didn't speak for the next 4 months, but about once or twice a month, he would text me, hey, I'm just thinking about you. I'm praying for you guys, for my son and I, that God will grow me into the man that you need me to be. And I was floored. So over those 4 months, I actually was overwhelmed with the fact that I had never thought I was, 1, worth waiting for, or 2, worth being prayed for. I had no idea. So finally in September, I was like, okay, let's do this. And then we were engaged by November and married by April.
Awesome.
Yes.
That is so fun.
Yes.
Well, come on, you can't beat that. I mean, a poem on Facebook.
Yeah.
Come on.
Hopefully, guys, if you're single and you're in this group, first of all, we're wondering how you got in here. But if you're dating and it's not, accelerating to the next level, that may be a tip for you.
Yeah, that is so sweet. And also the fact that you guys, kind of met on Facebook is fun, right? And that's what we're talking about, fun in marriage and fun in our relationships. So, like we said before, we really believe that God designed marriage to be fun-filled, right? To be life-giving. And the truth is that many couples have a lot of fun when they're dating, right? And maybe it's a little less fun when you're engaged because then you're in the planning season and all that stuff. And then once you're married, it can become a little less fun as the years go on and life happens and all that kind of good stuff. And we get into kind of the busyness or business, whichever one you want to call it, of marriage, right? We have careers and bills and schedules and kids and all the good stuff, a house. And before we know it, fun becomes something that we are longing for and that we really desire, but we rarely experience, right? So one thing that we've discovered is to get what we once had in our dating relationship, that fun, right? We have to do what we once did, right?
Yeah, we realized probably after year 3 to 5, right around there, that we as a couple, we were kind of in a rut. And
We had 3 kids by that
We
time.
had 3 kids. Somebody just dropped them off at our doorstep. And there they were, and we were like, man, we love each other and we are in this for life and everything. But we just found ourselves in this rut where it was just the doing of marriage and the doing of family. And our conversations were a lot around, the kids and around schedules and around bills and around those kinds of things. And we found ourselves, we weren't talking about our dreams for the future anymore. We weren't talking about just our shared heart and our shared experiences anymore. And so we decided we have got to go back, and that's what we mean by that statement. We got to go back and start doing what we did when we were dating and start doing what we did when we were first married. And we, that's one thing when you're year 5, 6 or so, but then we found ourselves in the same place at year 10 and 12. And we're like, you know what? We're going to go back and we're going to do those things. So we wanted to ask you guys, what are some of those fun things that you did as a dating couple? What are those fun things you've done as a newlywed couple that you're like, we're going to keep these going in our marriage that brings life to your relationship?
So for us, when we were dating in that short period of time between, September-ish to that, we got married in April. We deck dated because we were a blended family. So we had 3 kids. And so we didn't, go out a whole lot. Donovan was with us 100% of the time, or with Jess 100% of the time. And so we found ourselves on the back deck of her house. And,
Yes.
so we would listen to music, we would order food, or I would bring food, or we'd make food. And we would just spend, sometimes hours just sitting out there and talking. And, we'd look at the stars, and I think really we were just dreaming of what the future was going to hold, and it just seemed so natural to us that how our life was gonna meld. But like you just said, I mean, we find ourselves in marriage. We come back from a honeymoon in the middle of the week, and the next day you got lunches to pack and kids to get off to school, and so I mean it changes rapidly, and life starts throwing things at you rapidly. So since we've gotten married, our deck dates, we still do that from time to time, but they now have moved to the front porch in the morning over coffee, less soda and energy drinks. But so anyway, we just keep changing the locations, but the stuff that we talk about, the things that we focus on, that still remains the same. I mean, we've bought kayaks, so we go out kayaking together. We hike together. Our dogs, since our kids are not together, we had to get some fur babies together. So we have two dogs that we thoroughly enjoy together. So,
and I'll have to say, with the 2 of us, we can turn anything into a date. Our favorite thing is grocery store dating.
Yes.
So it's the only time we didn't have kids. Yes. So we will run around the grocery store and have an absolute blast. And what we do at the end, we find jumpers. Things that will jump off the shelf and into our cart unexpectedly, like, I don't know, donuts and cupcakes, or something that we can eat in the parking lot and not have to share with our kids. Yes, so.
I mean, we've actually had people come up to us in the grocery store saying that we shouldn't be having this much fun in the grocery store. So, yeah.
So we actually purpose to find amusement and fun in everyday little things and be silly. Yeah.
I love that. That is so good because it's practical. It's not that it has to be something grand or, so much detail or planning. You're just making the fun out of everyday living.
My mom used to say, if you wait for the big things in life to get excited about, it's not going to be a very exciting life. So make everything exciting. So we do.
Yeah.
That is so good.
Yeah.
I love it. That is so good. Okay. So groups, how about you guys? It's your turn. What were some ways that you brought the joy and fun into your relationship early on, right? Early on in the dating or early marriage. We're going to pause the video and you're going to go ahead and talk about these couple of things, okay? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the level of fun in your marriage? And I think your leader is going to go over what that scale means. And then earlier we said to get what you once had, you have to do what you once did. So what fun and romantic things did you do early in your relationship that you might need to start doing again? Okay, welcome back, everybody. We are talking about keeping the joy and fun in our marriage with Jess and JR, and you guys are just awesome. I love you. In fact, we believe that fun is not a luxury in marriage. It's a vital component, right? It's so important, and it doesn't always come easy. Right? Can we all agree it doesn't always come easy, right? And so you have to be intentional about investing fun into your relationship. So JR and Jess, we're going to ask you guys, what are some things that you have that you've discovered that have become barriers, right, to having fun and joy in your marriage, and how can couples overcome them?
So when we were thinking about this, I think for us, we realized some of our past relationships that we've come out of can really, you're holding on to things that we,
Past hurts.
Exactly. Yep. So we went through freedom, as a couple, early on in our relationship, and so we were able to find, some healing from that those things. We also realized that sometimes we bleed on the person that didn't cut us. Like there's times where there's hurts that we didn't inflict, but yet we get the so that for us was a huge thing when we went through freedom and we found some of the healing from those past hurts.
And the other thing that we discovered is that life has thrown, in the 5 years that we've been married, life has not even been kind of easy, not a little bit at all. Not only did our past lives go crazy, but our current one. So in the first year that we were married, our daughter went into the hospital a number of times with asthma. Our son, my biological son, was diagnosed with a autoimmune disease. So that meant infusions every 6 weeks and a trip to Baltimore. And it was crazy. The hits didn't stop coming.
Yeah, but something that we learned in that one, especially with Donovan's health, was that, it seems so overwhelming. I mean, we're, 6 months into this thing and, everything looked, all those, things that we were thinking about just months before, now all of a sudden it's like, and so one thing after we went through like freedom and we realized, God allows sometimes things like that to happen. And I didn't get to have Donovan as a baby. I didn't get to hold him as a baby. I didn't get that bonding experience. You get thrust together at I think he was 11 when I first started coming around. And so, for me in that moment when his autoimmune disease didn't allow him to grow for several years leading up to that, he was just, he was scared of needles, so I was able to hold him while they did the needles. I was able to show up for him, So there were so many things that were able to, and I don't think we could have seen those things without having God in our life and being able to really go through something hard and see the positive things that came of it.
I think we were on a trip for our 3rd anniversary. It was the first time I'd ever been separate from Donovan, probably for the 14 years I'd had him, and we were sitting on the front porch of this little baby cabin overlooking this mountain, and I was like, wow, this year has been so much easier than the first two. And JR's response is, no, actually, this year was probably our hardest year yet. And I was like, are you kidding? But what we discovered and what we realized is that life goes like this all the time. It's the ups and the downs, but the joy that we get from God is very consistent. So we can find, when we really search out what God has for us in those moments, whether they're good or bad, we find joy in everything. So we do. So it's fantastic. But the closer we draw to each other and to God, everything is joyful and great. Yeah. So while it's not always fun, there's always joy to be had.
I am so glad you said that, because the topic of this week is all about how to keep the fun in your marriage. And it's a little bit of play on words, because we know that fun is circumstantial.
Yes.
But joy
Yep.
is not. And the joy that comes from the Lord not only is our strength, but it's not based on our circumstances. And what I
Yes.
love is that you guys have been through the difficult times as a family and as a married couple. But man, you are placing your trust and you're placing like where your source comes from, as far as joy goes, as far as peace goes, is coming from the Lord.
Yep.
And
As
that is just amazing.
Yeah.
Right
Absolutely.
on. That's so good. So I think what would be helpful, at least what's helpful for me, is when we talk about joy, when we talk about fun and life, being given to us in our marriages, we set it into 3 categories. And we like to talk about this here at Freedom Church. We like to say that there's face-to-face fun, there's side-by-side fun, and then there's belly button to belly button fun. All right.
Yes.
And so we're going to define those real quick. Okay. Right. We're going to define those. So face-to-face fun is all about connecting through good communication. We like to say that communication is like oxygen to a relationship. And with it, there's vibrancy and there's growth and there's life. And without it, you kind of suffocate. It's important, so important to carve out that face-to-face time together.
Right. Yep. And then there is side by side fun, right? And you may ask, what is that? Right? It's if face to face fun is all about communication, then side by side fun is all about time spent. I don't know about you guys, but that's one of my love languages for sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Spending time together. And the truth is that God designed marriage to be a partnership. Right. So marriage is so much better when you're doing life together as a family, as a team, as a couple. So this means you find some things that you can do together that bring life to your marriage.
And so, okay, so face to face, side by side, and then belly button to belly button fun. And yes, we are talking about intimacy and we're talking about sex. So if you're in our groups and you're engaged or you're dating, this is not for you now. But we
Take
really do.
notes.
I mean, seriously, all kidding aside, we do believe that God created sex for a husband and a wife to enjoy together, and he made it good. I used to say in youth group, I would embarrass the teenagers all the time. God made sex good. I got 3 kids to prove it, And so it's pretty awesome. It is a gift. And when you think about it, your intimate life, your sex life is the only part of your life that you share with your spouse that you don't share with anyone else. You share your social life with others. You share your spiritual life with others. You share, your physical space with other people. But your intimate life is that only part of your life that you only share with that one person that you're married to, which is so super special. One counselor said that when your sex life is good, when your intimate life is good, other parts of your marriage that are off are not quite so bad. But when your intimate life is bad, those other areas are magnified and that's even more difficult. And so it really, really matters. That's what a counselor said. A comedian one time said that sex for a woman is like fine wine. You open it up and uncork it and let it breathe and take time, and it's just good. And when it's good, it's really good, and when it's bad, it's bad. For a man, sex is a little bit different. For a man, sex is like pizza. When it's good, it's really good, and when it's bad, it's still pretty good. So I'm just saying, take notes, kids, take notes. So face-to-face fun, side-by-side fun, belly button to belly button fun, all important categories of bringing life into your marriage. So the whole idea with these categories, and really the whole idea of fun or adding life to your marriage, is to foster intimacy between a husband and wife. And God created marriage to be enjoyed through deep intimacy and connection. So the question for you guys that you can help us with is, what would you say to a couple who may be missing some of that intimacy in one or more of those areas of marriage?
Well, I think I'll start off with what I think women get to. For me, if I focus on the wrong things, I can get off track. So I always say I have to move my quarter. JR is wonderful in all sorts of great ways, but if I have his issues or things that are irking me at the moment as the quarter and I hold it really close, that's all I can see and that's all I'm focusing on. But if I move my quarter out, all of a sudden I remember all of the great things that he is. And I'm like, dude, some days I'm like, I gotta move my quarter.
sometimes she posts things that I do for her on Facebook just so that she can remind herself later. She goes back and reads it, and sometimes I got out of trouble just because she went to my Facebook and read what she said about me.
That is
weeks
a true
ago, so,
statement.
yeah.
It's great. Sometimes I need reminders because he is absolutely fantastic. And the other thing I realize is that when I am kind of off and I need something, I don't expect you to be a mind reader. I actually ask for what I need because I think it's unfair not to let him know. So if I'm like, there are days where I will text him, I'm like, hey, I need you to tell me I'm beautiful. I need you to date me. Like, I want to be taken out. I want to have a good time because the way he pursued me and pursued my heart at the beginning of us dating was just set a tone that I love. I love him pursuing me. I want to be chased. So I give him, yeah, he does. I love it. So I have to give him that opportunity. And sometimes you do get comfortable in life and we forget that he likes to chase and I need to be pursued. So I just give him a heads up like, hey, can you? and he happily accommodates. Yeah. And that leads us to all the fun that is in step 3, in the belly button to belly button. Just saying.
Let me interject and ask this one
Yes.
question, because you brought up something that is so interesting, is that we've noticed that there are couples, especially newlywed
Yes.
couples, that sometimes, not every couple, but sometimes there's an expectation that like, you should just know what I need. You said the mind reading thing.
Yes.
And sometimes that comes from an overly romantic mindset.
Yes.
And a perspective of marriage, right? Talk a little bit about what is it like when she says to you, this is what I need from you. What is that like for you on the receiving end, JR?
Well, one, it takes the guesswork out. Like I don't have to go, figure out what it is that I need to do. And I think for me, like like the 5 love languages, like I used to think that the things that brought me joy was her love language. Like if giving gifts was something that brought me joy, that why don't you like this? Like this doesn't make so for her to be able to tell me exactly the areas that are needing, to be filled up. One, it protects our marriage, right? Yeah. Instead of like keeping that secret and hoping, that I'm going to figure it out. It protects us by covering that. And then, but the mystery of it all and having the fun of figuring out different ways to continue to pursue her now. I know her better than I did, when I was pursuing her. So there's things that I've learned over, and I'm just getting started, which is great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, so good. That is so good. I love it. Well, we can just stop now.
Yeah,
it's
I
just
gotta
so
move
good.
my quarter.
I know. Move the quarter, deck dating,
Yes.
front porch dating.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh.
Yeah. Were you going to say something else, Joe?
Oh.
I did want to say, in this last segment, that those 3 areas. I mean, there's so many things that are important, but I think for husbands especially, we need to protect our wives' hearts. Like we need to be able to really, like they need to see themselves the way that we see them. And even more so the way that God sees them. So something that Jess and I have done, is like when I pray over her, when I step into the presence of God, when we're praying together, I thank him for all of the things specifically that I love about her so that she can hear it. And the trust there, she realizes that I don't take that lightly when I'm speaking to him. And so like for her, sometimes that has, just
It
been a game
changes
changer.
everything. When I think I'm, not enough, when I'm not a good mom this week. I'm not good enough for anything. Like, how could anybody ever love me? And he goes to God and reminds me of what they both think of me. And it changes everything. It doesn't help me but fall back in love with him and just changes, again, moves my quarter, even when it's about myself. Yeah.
It's so awesome because we're talking about intimacy. And
Yes.
so there's it just makes me think like there's face to face, there's side by side, there's belly button to belly button. All of that is important and wonderful. But then we need to come up with this 4th phrase, I guess, of like, there is also this spiritual intimacy that's got to be present.
Yes.
And it's got to be there. We actually talked about that in week 1 of this group series with Pastor Eric and Debbie of like putting God first, praying together, praying over each other. I mean, that is just so critical.
It's
so awesome.
huge. It's my nook time. I'm fit. God designed me to fit perfectly into this nook. So when I feel horrible and the world's all out of skew, I will curl right up into his nook, and that's where he prays over me. So we'll call that nook time.
Do I have a nook?
So many good
Come on,
things.
get in this nook.
Getting that nook.
All right, let's wrap up.
Such good stuff. Thank you guys so much.
Yes.
So groups, yes, we're going to wrap up and we are going to let you guys talk about these 3 areas that we have covered tonight of fun. It's such good stuff. I hope you were taking notes. If not, you can just rewatch the video and it'd be good. So you're going to discuss these things. Why do you think face-to-face fun, i.e. communication, is so important in a marriage? What are some ways you used to or would like to enjoy some side-by-side fun, spending time together, being creative in that, and really because sometimes that's hard to you have different interests and and that takes some work to get there, and so that's important. And then this one is for married couples only. How would you rate your belly button to belly button time? And I'll let your leader tell you what the ratings mean, 1 being something and 10 being something else. And then what's one thing you can change to make your intimate life more fulfilling?